Hello, everyone. Welcome to another presentation on how to elevate your public speaking skills. Today, we're going to focus on support in public speaking. All right. I want to bring up the tale of two speeches that I told you earlier this semester. That was about the two students. One had a very effective speech, the other one, not really. So, as you recall, a key to the effectiveness was the organization, which I I explained to you is written out in a preparation outline, and that is your strategy for how to get your message into the heads of your audience. So today, I want to remind you a little bit about the outlining. So the outline has several parts, right? It's a three-part outline. You have the introduction, body, and conclusion, and you begin to create it by stating your general purpose, your specific purpose, and your central idea. Then you preview, then you give your introduction and so on, right? And then the body with the main points and your conclusion. So within the body with the main points is where you're going to be placing your evidence. And what your evidence is going to do is support your claims. And a claim is a proposition of what you believe to be true. So I like to think of it as the pillars that uphold the claim that which is the thesis or the central idea. And then you have the main points, which are also claims, what you believe to be true. So we have several kinds. The first kind is narrative. The second is example. The third type is testimony. The fourth type is qualitative facts. And the last type are quantitative facts. I'm going to now explain each of these separately. So narrative. Narrative is a story. A story can be real or imaginary. It can be short or it can be drawn out in length. Some qualities of narrative are that they're detailed, structured stories with a beginning, middle, and end used to engage emotions, build connections, and convey a message or a lesson. The purpose of stories are to create vivid, memorable experiences for your audience through characters, conflict, and plot. And there are several types. So there's personal stories that can be about your own situation or an example from your own life or somebody else's. There's also historical accounts when you talk about people from history. And then there's fictional stories that have really good moral messages. So those can be used as well. Now, I'm going to refer to that student's speech about the children who are slaves in the chocolate industry throughout here to give you examples of what we're talking about. So here's an example of a narrative. It's a short one, right? So when Abdul's mother died, a stranger brought him across the border to the farm. Abdul says all he's given is a little food, the torn clothes on his back, and an occasional tip from the farmer. Abdul is a modern day slave. So, what this does is it illustrates the problem with very specific details. It personifies it, it gives it a face, it makes it something that people can relate to. And then I even include a photo on the slide to make it even more real for you. The next type of support is examples. So examples, they illustrate, describe, or represent people, situations, or events. And they're different from narratives in that they're shorter, right? So it's a brief, specific instance used to clarify, support, or illustrate a point. Its purpose is to simplify complex ideas quickly and help the audience grasp a concept through a single focused instance. So there's some types. There are factual ones, which could be real, or there could be hypothetical, which are imagined, which can also be very effective. So here's an example of using example. Cocoa farming endangers children's lives. For example, scars crisscross Yaku's leg from a machete. He can't clear grass in the cocoa fields without cutting himself. During the harvest season, he works day after day hacking the cocoa pods. So I'm talking about how he gets injured. I'm talking about also how he works and has to hack the field. So I'm giving you the facts without the background of the story. The next type of support is testimony. These are accounts by eyewitnesses of a situation. They are accounts by people who lived through it, or they can be the opinions of experts or professionals who study or work in a specific area. Some qualities of testimony, they can be either narratives or examples. They are high in credibility. People believe testimony because it's from the actual person. And then they are high in emotional impact. So that's why you see that that in court, people often bring witnesses to prove their point, partly because of the credibility and partly because of that emotional impact when people tell their stories. This is an example that you can copy down this URL and see. This is examples of testimony. So in this video, what you see is you see a reporter that's in Africa reporting on children in the slave trade. So you'll see that's what the television news does, is it actually interviews people on the scene. So people that are affected, and then sometimes they interview experts. The next type of support is a qualitative fact. And these are facts that give details. The details describe the events, the people, or the situation discussed, and they include who, what, when, and where, just like a reporter does when they're writing an article. Some qualities of qualitative facts. They're objective statements that can be proven true or false using verifiable evidence. The purpose is to inform and establish credibility by providing solid, indisputable evidence. And here's an example. In 1969, Neil Armstrong became the first human to walk on the moon. So I say that fact, and then I show you a picture that makes it even more convincing to you. Now we're going to talk, give you an example from the speech on the children in the that are slaves in the chocolate industry. Slave traders trick destitute parents into giving up their children, thinking they will be given good paying jobs and or education. Children paid nothing, receive no education, are underfed, and are often viciously beaten if they try to escape. Most will never see their families again. They work every day with dangerous pesticides. So those are all just facts that don't have any numbers, but they describe what's going on and they give you concrete examples so that you can believe when I say there's a problem with children being slaves in the chocolate industry. Then you have quantitative facts, which are numerical data on persons, items, situations, or outcomes. They're very concrete and straightforward, and they're very highly valued in US culture. That's why we have to fill out surveys whenever we do anything. We get surveys now on all our receipts so those stores can collect all that quantitative information about what's going on. And they quickly demonstrate increases, decreases, and the pervasiveness of any phenomenon, shortages, and so on. Here's an example, here's the qualities of them. Okay, so numerical information, it provides measurable and objective data. It's derived from statistics, surveys, or empirical research. The focus can be on how much, how many, or how often something occurs or how something changes. An example is 65% of residents reported feeling safe in their neighborhood. That's an example of a statistic from a survey. And here's an example from the chocolate industry situation I was telling you about, right? So here's some numbers. 1.56 children in child labor, 43% in hazardous activities, 62% increase in cocoa production between 2008 and 2009 and between 2018 and 2019. So, and this is from our government, so that makes it a pretty credible source there. All right. Now, here's examples of quantitative facts from that speech about the children again. Hundreds of thousands of children are being purchased from their parents or outright stolen and then shipped to the Ivory Coast, where they are enslaved on cocoa farms. So notice when I say hundreds of thousands, that that's more powerful than just saying many children, right? Many children is a qualitative fact, but when I put hundreds of thousands and I give you this enormous number, it makes that qualitative fact much more powerful. 11 to 16-year-old children, but sometimes younger, are forced to do hard manual labor for 80 to 100 hours a week. Again, notice how those numbers, so when you see their age, it really hits home how young these people are. And then when you see the hours and you see how they are just really abused by working so many hours a week. And then the numbers are shocking, right? 70% or more of the world's cocoa is harvested by slaves, most of them children. So you really want to pay attention to your brands, right? But that number, 70%, so much more powerful than just say many of the world's or much of the world's cocoa, right? When I give you the number, that has a lot more impact. So all of these facts can be made even more powerful with graphs or charts. So we talked just a couple of days ago about visual aids. So here's a visual aid that's called a chart. And what it does is combine some quantitative information with this way of rating it by using color. So they color coded it as well as put numbers on it. And this shows you the percentage of the cocoa that's bought by these various chocolate companies and whether or not they had it fair trade certified. So if it's fair trade certified, it means there was no slavery in the supply chain, and it also means that the workers were treated ethically. So this is a rating. So up here you have these companies in the green that have 100% certified. So you can be sure that when you eat this chocolate, none of it had any slavery involved. And then it has Mars and Nestle's, which it says 47% and 42%. So they've gotten a little bit better since the earlier time when Caleb did his speech, but they still have a long way to go. And this is 2019, so it's 6 years later. And as I told you in class earlier this semester, that I looked it up and said that the companies that have been committing, they're having a hard time actually implementing it. So Lindt and Hershey got a C, so 86% and 80%, and then Mondes, Frere, and Godiva got a lower rating. Okay. So that the colors, you instantly see which companies are sourcing ethically and which ones are not. And those colors influence you about which ones that you want to support or not support by withholding your purchases. And here's another type of chart. Now, we talked about this with the visual aids. Graphs can be very powerful, and they quickly show you the numbers with an image. So this is a bar graph. So this shows you, and this isn't actually to do with the ethical sourcing or the slavery. This is just to do with the percentage of people who responded or this percentage of bars that people say they buy from specific companies, right? So you have Hershey's, and 52% of the respondents said that they buy Hershey's, and Reese's, which is also a Hershey company, and then so on. So it goes down, right? So you could see that that a lot of people are buying from these big mainstream companies, which are still being challenged to get ethical sourcing. Alrighty, so what we talked about is that there are several types of evidence to support your claims in a speech. The claim is the thesis or the main idea, and you have the subclaims. And so we have narrative, which are stories, we have examples, we have testimony, we have qualitative facts, and we have quantitative facts. And those support your ideas and make your speech much more convincing. Some places to get evidence for your speeches. So support is also called evidence, right? So you can get it from library. The library has books, encyclopedias and dictionaries, academic journals, periodicals, and archive materials. And our library has a lot of material online. So you just look it up. And I encourage you to go talk to a librarian or just call a librarian. They are so helpful. They will answer any questions. They can direct you to where to get the kinds of sources that you need and the kinds of evidence that you need. The internet that's not connected to our website also has information. I mean, our library website, right? But the internet also has our academic journals, and anything we don't have in our library that's in a journal, you can get through interlibrary loan within 24 hours. So don't be afraid if we don't have it in our library. And then periodicals. Now, websites, I've listed these in orders of most credible to least credible. Although nowadays, I don't know if I'd put government first, but I used to think that was a very credible source. But academic is at least as high, if not more credible right now. Academic sources, very, very credible. Okay. Nonprofits tend to be more credible than private because they're usually committed to a cause. And that's why they exist, is to serve the mission. There can be some unethical nonprofits, but because the nonprofits have this mission to serve the public, and they have to have nonprofit status. They tend to be credible. But there are some people that start nonprofits that have an axe to grind that can publish non-verifiable or false information. So if you get information from a nonprofit, see if you can cross-check it against other sources. For business, even more so because they have an obligation to make money for their investors. That's how you get to be a business. So their motive is profit, and they'll only put stuff on their websites to promote their goals of making profit, which may not be, I mean, making profit is, we all need to make money. I'm not saying that making a profit is wrong. That's okay, but how you do it makes a difference. So that's one of the problems is businesses, they don't want to publish anything that doesn't make them look good, and they have limited information when it comes to research. Private websites don't get checked by anybody, at least at a business, at least a larger business. There's just different eyes looking at it, and they are in the public eye. A private website, it doesn't have people cross-checking and fact-checking, so it can be the credibility is lower than these other entities that have lots of different eyes looking at it and cross-checking and fact-checking. And so private and personal pretty much mean the same thing. So you have to be very, very careful. Like you don't want to grab a fact off of your social media because one of your best friends said it. That doesn't make it credible, right? You need to find it documented someplace in some kind of research or journal article or newspapers, magazines, so on, where there's public vetting of that information. So that is the presentation.